The invitation arrived on a rainy Thursday evening. 10-year college reunion, Grand Sapphire Hotel. I almost threw it away, not because I hated reunions, but because I knew he would be there. Ethan Cole, my ex-husband, the man who once held my hand in crowded hallways and whispered that I was the only woman he would ever love, and the same man who destroyed me so quietly that nobody even noticed it happening. I stared at the golden envelope while my tea turned cold beside me. For 10 years, I had avoided every event connected to our old college. Every memory felt like stepping barefoot on broken glass. But something about that invitation felt different. Maybe it was the timing. Maybe it was because I was finally no longer the woman he left behind. Or maybe, deep down, I wanted him to see what happened after he shattered me. That night, I stood in front of my closet longer than I should have. My fingers brushed across elegant dresses I rarely wore. I wasn't nervous about seeing Ethan. At least that's what I kept telling myself. But memories have a cruel way of returning. When your heart finally starts healing. Back in college, Ethan wasn't just popular. He was admired, confident, charming, brilliant. Professors loved him. Students followed him. Even then, everyone said he was destined to become powerful. And they were right. Today, he was the CEO of one of the fastest growing tech companies in the country. Meanwhile, according to the rumors he probably believed, I disappeared, failed, became forgettable. What nobody knew was that after our divorce, I rebuilt my life in silence. No social media, no interviews, no public success stories. Just years of surviving quietly while learning who I truly was without him. The night of the reunion, the ballroom glittered with crystal lights and fake laughter. People hugged dramatically, comparing careers, marriages, vacations, achievements. And then I saw him. Ethan stood near the center of the room, in a perfectly tailored black suit, surrounded by people, hanging on to every word he said. Some things never changed. The second his eyes landed on me, his smile froze. Not because I looked glamorous, not because I entered dramatically, but because I wasn't broken anymore. I walked toward the refreshment table, calmly, pretending not to notice him approaching. Well, his familiar voice said behind me, "Look who finally showed up." I turned slowly. He looked older, sharper, colder, but still dangerously handsome. His eyes scanned me from head to toe before that smirk appeared. The same smirk that once made me weak, couldn't find a better catch after me. He asked softly. A few nearby classmates laughed awkwardly, and for one painful second, I felt 22 again, small, humiliated, invisible. But what Ethan didn't know that night was that the woman standing in front of him was carrying a truth powerful enough to change everything. And before the reunion ended, he was going to wish he had never spoken to me at all. 10 years earlier, I truly believed Ethan loved me. We married only a year after graduation. We were young, ambitious, and convinced we could conquer the world together. At first, life felt beautiful. Tiny apartment, late-night takeout dinners, dreams bigger than our bank account. I supported Ethan through everything. While he built his startup, I worked extra jobs to help cover bills. I edited his presentations at 2 in the morning. I listened to his fears when investors rejected him, and every time he succeeded, I celebrated harder than he did because I thought we were a team. But success changes people, especially people who already secretly believe they deserve more than everyone else. The first thing that disappeared was his kindness, then his patience, then his honesty. Eventually, Ethan stopped looking at me like I mattered at all. He became obsessed with status, wealth, powerful friends, exclusive parties, and suddenly, I no longer fit into the polished image he wanted beside him. One night, after a company event, he stared at me across our kitchen table and said words I will never forget. "You're holding me back." Claire, holding him back, after everything I sacrificed for him. I remember laughing at first because I honestly thought he was joking, but he wasn't. A month later, I discovered he had been seeing another woman, a social media influencer from a wealthy family whose father invested millions into his company. The betrayal itself hurt, but the way he discarded me hurt even more. Like, our entire marriage had simply become inconvenient. The divorce was brutal. He kept the apartment, the friends, the social circles, even the narrative. People believed I was unstable, emotional, difficult because Ethan was charming enough to make every lie sound believable. I moved away quietly after that. For a long time, I stopped recognizing myself. Some mornings, I couldn't even get out of bed without crying. But pain changes people too. Unlike Ethan, pain made me stronger. I returned to something I had abandoned years earlier. My art. Before marriage, I loved designing luxury interiors and custom furniture. Ethan used to call it a cute hobby, so I turned that cute hobby into work, then into a business, then into an empire, but I kept my name hidden intentionally. No interviews, no photos, no public identity. My company became known simply as Luna Atelier, one of the most exclusive interior design brands for luxury, hotels and celebrity homes, and nobody knew I was the founder, not even Ethan. Back at the reunion, I could feel his curiosity growing every time someone approached me warmly, especially when the hotel manager personally greeted me. "Ms. Bennett," he said respectfully, "your private suite is ready whenever you'd like." Ethan's expression shifted slightly. Confusion, then suspicion. "You're staying here?" he asked. I smiled lightly. I own part of the property. That was technically true. 3 years earlier, my investment group had quietly purchased shares in the hotel chain. The room suddenly became quieter around us. Ethan laughed nervously. "Wow, didn't expect that." But his eyes were studying me now, trying to understand, trying to calculate how the woman he abandoned somehow returned stronger than before. Then came the moment that changed everything. The reunion organizers stepped onto the stage, holding a microphone. "We also want to recognize a special guest tonight," she announced excitedly. "A woman whose company recently won International Luxury Brand of the Year." The ballroom applauded politely. And then she said my name. "Please welcome the founder and CEO of Luna Atelier, Claire Bennett." Silence. Complete silence. I watched Ethan's face lose all color. People around him gasped. Some stared at me. Others immediately pulled out their phones. And Ethan? He looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time in his life. Because suddenly, the woman he mocked minutes earlier wasn't his forgotten ex-wife anymore. I was the woman whose company was now worth more than his entire corporation. But the biggest shock still hadn't arrived. After the announcement, people surrounded me instantly. Classmates who barely noticed me years ago suddenly wanted conversations, photos, business cards. But I barely heard them, because across the ballroom, Ethan stood frozen, watching me. For the first time in our relationship, he looked uncertain and strangely small. Later that evening, he finally approached me again near the balcony overlooking the city lights. "You never told anyone," he said quietly. "Told them what?" "That you became this." I looked at him carefully. Funny how success changes people's vision. Years ago, he looked through me. Now he couldn't stop staring. I didn't build my life to impress old classmates. I replied calmly. His jaw tightened slightly. "You could have reached out. I almost laughed at that. After 10 years of silence, now he wanted connection. You made your choice, Ethan. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The city lights reflected in the glass between us like fractured stars. Then, his voice softened. I was young, stupid. I thought success mattered more than loyalty. That sentence should have satisfied me. It should have felt like victory. But strangely, it didn't. Because healing changes revenge too. At one point, I dreamed about humiliating him publicly, the same way he humiliated me. I imagined making him regret every cruel word. But standing there that night, I realized something important. The greatest revenge wasn't destroying him. It was becoming someone his betrayal could no longer destroy. And life had already punished him in ways no public humiliation ever could. Because despite his wealth and fame, Ethan looked exhausted, lonely, like a man constantly chasing validation he could never fully reach. Meanwhile, for the first time in years, I felt peaceful. I used to think losing you ruined my life. I admitted softly. His eyes lifted toward mine. But losing you forced me to finally find myself. That hurt him more than anger ever could. You could see it. Not because I insulted him, but because he realized the woman he abandoned became extraordinary. Without him, and the woman standing before him no longer needed his approval. When I finally turned to leave, Ethan spoke one last time. Claire, I paused. I really did love you once. I smiled sadly without turning around. Maybe, I whispered, but not enough. Then I walked away, not dramatically, not angrily, just peacefully. As I stepped outside the hotel, the cool night air touched my face. And for the first time in a decade, the memories no longer hurt. Because some betrayals don't break you forever. Sometimes they rebuild you into someone stronger, wiser, and impossible to control again. And maybe that's the hardest truth people like Ethan must live with. The people they underestimated often become the ones they can never reach again.